Good. Good morning, gentlemen. How is everyone?
Excellent.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I see we're all here, so I'm checking wherever all of us are here on the committee. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
I have.
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Paul Dossett has moved. Bob O'Connell has seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, call it. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Okay, motion, that is passed. The minutes are passed. So our agenda has us going over our priority list again, and we really wanted to go to the elected positions that we chose to keep as they are. However, we got two very good findings from Bob O'Connell and from Dick. And I wonder if you want to hit those first, take a look at those first before we go on to the larger discussion. Does anybody care?
No, let's do that.
Okay, so let's start with Bob's, which I think is interesting. This is a proposed term limit findings, and I've got a draft. You've all got a draft, I guess.
Mhm.
Have you all read it? And what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's brilliant myself.
What I love about you, Bob.
Yeah. I
I'm just gonna-
I thought several of those were very beneficial. I'm not sure I agree with all of them, but maybe we could talk about each one of them.
Okay.
Let's cut it down. It is a little wordy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to number one. New voices brought in. What do you
Oh,
think?
I thought that was a good comment. I support number one.
Maybe I should read it for the record since
Yeah,
anyone
sure.
listening might not know about this.
Yeah, you bet.
In support of the proposal, the committee takes the following findings. This is a proposal. It is important that new voices be brought in as part of county leadership from time to time. The county will benefit from new perspectives and new ideas.
Support that.
Thoughts? Okay, so Paul likes that. Anybody else have a thought on that? Yes, David.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit doubtful that 3 consecutive term limits would accomplish that. We had a debate,
Thank
didn't
you,
we
Tom.
already? We already had a debate about 2 versus 3 as the limit. So it's already been put to bed, but I just point that out that
Okay,
somebody could come back and say, well, then it should be only 2 terms, not 3. But as written, that's fine. I think that's why we decided.
mhm.
Well, these are findings, David. You know, we have passed the motion and that's,
Right.
That's on record, but these are just
Right.
the findings.
I understand.
One thing about findings for term limits is every single argument you make for it, there is an obverse argument to make for no term limits. It's just a matter of what your judgment tells you would be best. I mean, with the ideas, obviously what you lose with the new ideas are the old ideas, which may be great.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just
Well,
a
I think
judgment.
you kind of touch upon that further down.
Mhm.
So is everyone satisfied that number one covers a strong backing for this proposal? You okay?
Yes.
Okay. You, Richard?
Well, I'm the one who voted against the motion, so I'm kind of inclined to hold back and,
Richard,
Yeah,
you can change your mind, Richard.
no, I won't change my mind. Number one's fine.
Okay. So number two reads, when the advantages of incumbencies begin to seem permanent, they can discourage challengers and cause the system to stagnate.
To me, that's a psychological assumption, and I'm not sure I agree with that.
Let me say that was not, some of these are the result of me doing some general research. and may not, to some of you folks who've been around a long time, may not seem to hit exactly on point regarding our history. My only thing about that is we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and stagnation with no term limits is a possibility. But I don't mind striking it if people want to strike it.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, the word stagnant requires a judgment call. And that's hard to measure.
Yes.
That's all I have to say about that.
What would be a better word?
I'm not sure.
Anybody?
How about rot? No, you can't say rot. You can't say.
You could just strike out and cause the system to stagnate.
Yeah, that's true.
Just leave it at discouraged challengers.
Well, I think that's a good point, David.
Does everybody agree that's a good thing to do?
I don't necessarily agree, but I'm good with it. I'm okay with it. So shall we strike it? Is that kind of where we are?
Anybody have any thoughts on that? David, are you signaling me or no? Okay. No, nothing from you, Tony?
Well, I'm philosophically against term limits in general, even though I voted to go along with the group. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can, yes.
Yeah, I'm philosophically against term limits, but I went along with the group, and I don't really have any way of defending it philosophically, other than to go along with what Bob has researched and found. To me, number 2 might not be necessary, because we're making a point that new voices need to be heard in number 1. So they just forget number 2 and call it good.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
If that's,
And I was going to say, I'm, again, the one who voted against the motion, but I would say if number 2 is going to stay there, either strike those words. If number 2 is going to stay there, strike those words, or the alternative is to just do away with number 2.
well, I'm starting off by striking it, and then shall we strike the whole thing is the question. Madam Chair?
I like the notion of putting in here that the advantages could discourage challengers. That just seems like it makes sense to me. I'd be inclined to keep it and eliminate cause the system to stagnate.
It sounds like everybody wants to, at least that much gone. Now, the question is, who wants the whole thing gone? I want it to stay, but.
Well, I'm with you on that, Bob.
How do other people feel? Tony's.
Tony,
Just from my own personal experience, you look at the current council membership. An eight-year member of council was opposed, and the opposing member or candidate won the election. When I was on the school board for 14 years, twice I was opposed. So incumbency did not really help much, other than, to say that it can discourage challengers. I don't think that happens in this county that often, that challengers, if there is a challenge to be made, the challengers will challenge. So I don't think incumbency says that, oh, there aren't going to be any challengers. Again, from my own experience and from the 2020 election, we've seen that incumbents get challenged, and sometimes the challenger prevails, and times the challenger doesn't prevail.
Madam Chair, it seems to me that maybe a majority want to strike the whole thing. Shall we take a quick straw poll as to who wants to strike it, the whole thing?
Sure.
Yeah,
Strike the whole sentence, whole number 2.
Just a straw vote.
Well, I'm considering this as a finding, and I think these are just a list of reasons that support this term limit. So I don't think it's critical, but I would leave it in.
So 2 wanted to strike the whole thing. I have struck, because it seemed like a majority wanted it, I have struck the last and after challengers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that.
So shall we go on?
Yes. Number 3.
Okay,
Okay, is there a question?
We're just striking and cause the system to stagnate, right? Is that what we
Correct.
decided?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's right.
3, a council member with unlimited tenure can build up a power base which can amount to a sort of, quote, empire. The more unmovable that member becomes, the less responsive to the public the member might tend to be.
I would strike the whole thing.
I would go along with that too.
Same here.
That's 3.
Good. Okay,
That's enough. I think that's enough to strike it.
I think so too.
All
I'm
right,
good
we'll
with
strike the
that.
whole thing.
Okay. 4, it is true that term limits, if too short, could cause the council to lose important institutional knowledge, but the possibility of 3 consecutive 4-year terms, total 12 years, will provide a safeguard against that problem.
I think there's some legitimacy there.
Me too.
Keep it.
I like it.
Okay.
Anybody have another comment there? No. Okay, so that stays. 5, it is also true that a new council member could have just, quote, learned the ropes when she finds herself term limited out. Again, a possible 12-year term would take care of that problem. After all, surely any new council member can find his way around after, say, 5 years, leaving him up to 7 more years to make use of that sure-footed knowledge. Well, there's a little gender swapping here.
I did that purposely so I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't get scolded.
Oh, well, you're not going to get scolded.
Yeah.
Oh, in another committee, Bob frequently gets scolded.
I know, Dick.
Well,
It's
we
never
could
you
say-
doing the scolding, though. It's never you.
No, no,
If you want to change it at all, we could just say he/she, and just leave it as one.
If you think that's kind of clumsy, I agree, I think.
It's easier to read than going from she and
Or we
down to.
could say when the member.
Yeah.
When the member,
Well, what about the substance of this number 5?
Yeah, I have a comment. I would strike the final sentence starting with after all, because it says, it infers or says that it takes up to 5 years for somebody to learn the ropes.
Yeah,
That's a long, long time.
Yeah,
I would hope that any new elected council member doesn't need 5 years to learn the ropes. I mean, this is kind of like, wait a minute.
they need,
That
they need-
that kind of statement kind of discourages the idea of putting in a new council member who's going to take 5 years when you've got somebody like Rick Hughes who had, 12 years, whatever it was.
I
I
suggest
think
we strike it.
So I'd take out that whole,
Just
Final
that last
sentence.
sentence. We're just talking about the last sentence, Bob.
I think David is correct, and from after all, we would strike the rest, right?
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I move for that too.
Okay.
I would strike the whole thing, but I guess I'm in the minority.
Well, no,
Dick,
I don't think,
Thank you, David, for the comment.
We need to have findings. We need findings. So
all right.
we have to have something here. So, okay, we're taking out the last sentence and leaving in the first 2 sentences,
Well,
correct?
on the first sentence there, when we use the word she, you could use the word when the person finds.
He/she.
be careful even doing that in this day and age.
I suppose.
I agree with Paul, the person.
Yeah, I'm kind of tripping.
How
over.
about when the person is
Member.
time limited out? Or become, rather than finds herself?
I think
Yeah,
When
simplified.
Be better-
when the
better.
member is time limited out.
Yeah.
Term
Yeah.
limited out, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
I think
good.
that's better wording, Bob.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Take out all reference to he or she.
Yeah, there you go.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Okay,
All right,
we got that. We're going to move on to 6. If a comparatively young person performs well as a county council member for 12 years, do we really want to deprive ourselves of their experience, expertise?
I'll take care of
and
that
service
part.
when they could help provide decades of good government? The provision allowing such a public servant after 4 years of office to begin a second string of consecutive terms allows for the recapture of that talent to the benefit of the county.
I would leave the last sentence and strike all the rest of it.
I like all of it.
I don't know if it would make sense if you took the first
Yeah,
sentence out.
I don't at all. You're posing the question and then you're answering it.
Well, that's true, but.
I,
it's a statement.
can I comment?
Go ahead, David.
I would strike out the whole thing. I'm strange for me to agree with Dick Grout, but I would take out that whole thing. I think this is so far in the future. It just, this is conjecture about what happens after 12 years. I just think it's not necessary.
Well, I haven't said anything about number 6, David, so I don't know how you can agree with me. But,
Well, you want to strike the whole thing.
but I'm going to agree with you. I think Attorney O'Connell turned into Philosopher O'Connell on this one.
Yeah,
It could be.
And I just don't think it fits as a finding.
yeah. I would
Actually,
agree.
I do. I like it, and I think it just supports the motion. That's all it does. It's not going to go into the Bible. It's not going to be kept forever. This is just a finding for one motion.
I tried to
If it-
respond to a possible very salient point against term limits by writing this. That's what it is a response. But
If-
anyway,
If it stays, I would strike comparatively young. It doesn't matter if a person performs well.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
okay, everybody
If
good with
a
that?
person,
If a person, okay, if a person performs well, and then when we get down to her expertise, I'll put the member's expertise. Do we really want to deprive
or
ourselves
there, you could just
of
say
the
there.
members? I don't like it's only one person. That's a plural word.
Okay. go
I
for it.
know, yeah. So the member's
Oh.
expertise, right?
Again, there are some assumptions in here that everybody seems to go along with, but I don't see that myself. I too feel that number 6 ought to go bye-bye.
All right, so how many want to see number 6 go away completely? Raise your hand. Straw vote here.
That's
1,
it.
2, 3, 4. Oh, then it all, I guess it
Away it
goes.
goes. All right, here's what I have then at the end. Number 6 is gone. I have number 1 stays the same. Number 2, we strike after challengers. Number 3 goes away. Number 4 becomes number 3, and it stays the same. Number 5, we
Becomes 4.
it becomes 4. Thank you, and we changed when she finds herself term limited to when the member is term limited, and we struck the second sentence entirely, and we struck number 6 entirely. So we're left with 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sounds
that
good.
right?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, I will redo this, and assuming it now passes, I'll or do we have to do that, Madam Chair? Do we have
Are we
to?
voting on these findings?
We don't have
I
to.
don't think we have to at all. I
Okay.
think
We've already voted on them.
if
Okay.
consensus is what it is, we're fine with this.
So
Thank you.
we've taken care of most of the problems
Yes.
once you assume that term limits are going to go. So I will redo this and send it. Should I send it back out to everybody, Madam Chair, or just yourself, or what?
Just send it to me and I'll put it in our summary.
And you'll take care of
Yep.
whatever contact with the main commission it requires. I don't
Yes.
send anything to them.
I don't know what that is yet, but
Okay,
I've got this summary is going to be our final product. So
send to chair.
Yeah.
To
Bob,
and
I
I
want
want
to
to and I want to thank you, Bob, for doing this. This
Yeah,
was
glad
a
to do it.
thoughtful,
That was
a
my
thoughtful
comment.
response.
Glad to do it, and thank everybody for their constructive changes.
Sure.
Okay, what were you going to say, Paul?
Oh, I just echoed what you just said, Marie.
Oh, we're thinking alike here.
We are.
Okay, so let's now talk if we can, and not take up too much more time, but talk about Dick Grout's response, okay?
Whatever he wrote, I hate it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I read it and it's really good.
It's quite a long finding, wouldn't you say?
It's too long.
It's
I thought
too
it was-
long. There we go.
I thought the
It's-
finding was just the first sentence. Seriously, I did.
First
It-
paragraph
was
we're joking.
commentary.
It is.
And he wandered into another thing at the second part. So
I
the
tell you,
first one is the proposed minimum qualifications, and the finding written by Dick Grout is the elected versus appointed committee finds the minimum qualifications for the various elected offices are necessary to ensure that candidates for those offices possess the basic skills, and experience necessary to effectively perform the duties of the office.
That's beautiful
Amen.
and concise.
Yes. I think it says exactly what we wanted to say.
It's
Does
concise
anybody-
in a way I've always failed to be.
You did fine. You did just fine.
You're an attorney, you charge by the hour.
By the word, by the word. Yeah.
So who would enforce?
Oh, God, that's funny. Okay, so I think this works for me. Does it work for everybody else? David, you've got your hand up.
It's not long enough. I think we have to add several more. No, I'm fine with it. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Good.
I gotta
And Bob-
tell you, I gotta tell you, Madam Chair, that since the elections subcommittee is not in session anymore, this is my favorite committee right here.
Oh,
And the second best run.
yeah, we're number 2 in his list. Okay, that's all right. We'll take it.
Tony,
We'll take it.
Tony, in the past, you have not said favorite, you said best. And I
Right.
noticed you didn't list us as the best committee now.
That's correct, best committee now. Thank you, Dick, for correcting me.
There you go.
Thank you.
Next week, he'll call us the prettiest. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Not with these guys on the board.
Someday the process committee will be the best committee still working,
Make me think.
because it'll be the only one still working.
Through 2022, probably.
All right, so I'm going to add this finding. If everyone is, we're in agreement, going to put it on the summary, and this will serve as our reason for the
Good job.
qualifications.
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, you have a statement underneath it. Richard, you want to explain that to us?
Yeah, I thought, the last time, and particularly because we were going over, I think we went a half hour over, I proposed just to not make the meeting go on any longer, that I would take this one issue to the governance committee. But when I thought about that later, I thought it really doesn't make any sense to take the one issue that is a qualifications issue, to take one and separate it from all the others. I thought, the rest of the commission will look at that and say, what? So I proposed to bring it back here for discussion, and that's why I asked you all to read it before the meeting, simply to decide, do we, as John Kulseth recommended, do we add management training to the list of trainings that all electeds are required to take? I believe it's within their first year in office. And the county has this training program set up. And John said, he said, I don't get it why management isn't one of those, because you do get people who haven't been managers. And I said, based on my own experience in both county and state government, where management was training was required of all managers, and it didn't matter how much experience you had to go through this training periodically. I just think it makes good sense. I agree with John, and I think we should add it to the list. So that was my proposal, to see what the rest of you think.
Did you just say that management training is available? Are you frozen?
No, it is
In
not
time.
currently part. Am I?
No, I know you were frozen there for a minute.
All
Am I-
right, how about, I turned off my video. I've been having. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. So go ahead, Dick. What were you saying?
Oh, you heard that? This management training is not currently available.
Oh, okay.
This would add it to the list of trainings that new electeds are required to take. I believe it's within their first year in office, and the county provides that training.
Right. So go ahead, Bob.
I think it's appropriate that everybody have that training, but it's not a qualification for the job. If it were, the person would be required to have it at the moment that he turned in his filing papers. So it's another animal. It is a good idea to require that a management training, but not a qualification.
Go ahead, David. You had your hand up next.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Exact same thing. It goes someplace else. I agree it's a good idea, but it doesn't go with qualifications. That's a whole different issue.
I think we're all in that corner. it's a good recommendation, but I don't think it should be a qualification.
Where can we put it?
Nope.
I don't know. Go ahead, Tony.
I think we can make that as a suggestion. The elections subcommittee has a suggestions for election observance. So maybe that's a suggestion for the county council to view as something that we moved from the governance, from the elected versus appointed committee. So I think we can add that as a thing that should be done in the county. I don't know how you can do that as a charter amendment though, and add it to the qualifications, because as Bob just said, you'd have to have somebody that is trained when they file for candidacy. And I don't know how that will work.
Yeah,
That's a good idea, just to make it part of a recommendation of the
Well,
small things that didn't fit in
agree.
any slot.
recommendation.
You know,
Who's, did David?
I
did
think,
you-
I think David was first.
That would be fine.
David?
I've commented. Thank you.
Oh, okay, because your hand is still raised on the thing.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I
Yes.
believe that Chairman Ranker has stated that it's appropriate for the commission to send a list of recommendations to the council for the council's action if they weren't appropriate for the charter. And that I think he was maybe even already beginning such a list.
Well, what I will tell you, the other night, I said that. I said that.
Oh, it
we
was you.
did a
It was you, okay.
recommendation list, and that there are probably other items on the rest of the committees that could all go on it. And then when I was done, Kevin restated it as though it was his idea. However, I'll let
Sorry.
it go for now. Go ahead, Tony.
That's actually in the charter. The
Yeah,
charter
it is.
allows us to
Yeah.
send recommendations forward.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
And we did that last time. We'll do it again. So management
Matt-
committee should be included in that.
Do we do that as a committee, or do we send that to the commission and tell the commission that they ought to add it to the list?
I will send it to Kevin and ask him to keep the list, and then just, we can send things as they come up. I think we had one from the operations as well. Did somebody else have their hand up? Okay, oh, Paul?
Paul,
Well, I'm gonna slide back. I hope you don't mind, but we talked about the qualifications for all the different elected offices. And we voted for that. I mean, we're supportive of it. But my question is, who is going to oversee the qualifications? Who's going to oversee that these people have met the qualifications at the time that they filed for the election?
Well, Randy got that question and he responded.
And I have this right here. I do have his response.
Yeah, he gave us a list of how this comes out.
I found his response to be inadequate.
I did too.
So he talks about possibly a person could maybe challenge it to the prosecutor, but the prosecutor himself doesn't oversee it before to see if they met those qualifications before the election.
Once again, we asked him the wrong question. We didn't ask him how should we do this?
Yeah.
You know, we asked him, could we do it this? Well, anyway.
Well, wait a minute. No, tell me that. What do you mean? You want us to go back to him and say, we would like to write a statement on accountability?
Let's
not go back to him at all. Let's do it ourselves. I'm serious.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
I have just a suggestion. And it is just a suggestion that at the time that they are registering to file for the election, that they provide documentation of said qualifications at the time that they register for the election, when they're going to run for election. Candidates will provide documentation of said qualifications.
Perfect.
Qualifications will already be out there, that this is what you have to have, but we don't have any way of proving that.
Then, Paul, wouldn't the second question be, what are we going to do with that list that they hand us? Should there not be somebody somewhere going, okay, pick up the phone and say, hey, did Harvey work there for 2 years? You know, I don't know. Should we?
It seems to me that should be in the legal area.
Dick, go ahead. Dick Grout?
Well, I think there are two ways. Yes, you can't hear me?
Yes.
Can you
Now
hear
I
me?
can. You're going
Okay.
in and out and it's
Um,
slow.
All right. I will cut my video again,
Okay,
Aw.
and then I will go say abusive things to CenturyLink. I think there are two ways to approach that. I agree with Paul that what we should do is require documentation be submitted to the elections office. And we could either say that the elections office will do some complete random verification, whatever, or we could simply leave it to the fact that somebody has to campaign and run for election and see if the voters want to do that or the opposing candidate wants to do that. I mean, I think there are a number of ways to do it, but I think it's a good point that we ought to say what we think should be done.
and make it part of this qualification. Maybe make it the entrance paragraph. Is that what you're saying?
I think it would be either a concluding paragraph or a separate
Yeah, I would agree.
separate point.
I would
One
agree.
or
It's
the
got to
other.
be part of this. I don't think it should
Well,
be.
then it should be a concluding point.
So it could be the elections office or a signee. Something has to be. They might not be the ones.
Well,
to do
that's
it.
what I'm saying is let's discuss it right now very quickly and decide where are we? What do we think should be done? And I'll draft something.
Okay, so when you go to file, do you go to the auditor's office or do you go to the elections?
Auditor. Well, the
Okay.
elections is out of the auditor's office.
I know that's part of it, but do you appear physically at the elections
You do.
office?
Yeah, you have to pay a fee and a whole bit.
And they accept your money, okay.
All right.
So have you got a question, Paul? Or something?
I had it in my thought, and it went away from me. Well, oh yeah, we're talking about who would review this. And it would seem to me, I would not have this done by anybody within the auditors or the elections department. I think this should be done by a deputy prosecutor or somebody that has some legal standing. All they would do is review it, and if it's all there, then they're done. If they're not, then they would question the candidate.
That's kind of an interesting idea. Go ahead, Bob.
You know, I initially thought, well, it's absolutely got to happen. You got to have somebody reviewing this stuff. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but when the person comes in with their papers to run, isn't there a short either affidavit section or section where the person swears that he is fully qualified for the office according to the qualifications on the books?
That's true. There is that. I'm just trying to go over the wording that you just put there.
And then Randy says, that's good enough. If the person isn't qualified, I will file against him after the election.
So what
After the
Randy is
election.
saying in his note to us is, at the time of filing a declaration of candidacy, the candidate certifies under oath that he or she is legally qualified to assume office,
Well,
meaning they are fulfilling the qualifications. Typically, the election supervisor will have the qualifications for office available and provide the same to each candidate. But that's not the same as certifying it. Go ahead, Tony.
David has had his hand up for a
I'm
while.
sorry, David, go ahead.
I'm about ready to leave this meeting.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I disagree with Paul. I think this is an elections issue and should be handled by the auditor office, the elections department, whatever. I mean, assign it to somebody else. And it's not doesn't require a real legal expertise like the prosecuting attorney usually deals with. It's just kind of a fact-checking thing. The other thing is, and now I forget what I'm going to say. Oh my God, what was I going to say? Oh, the idea of Randy's that you can always challenge it after the election if you want
I
to.
know.
I think that's a terrible idea. You
Yeah,
got to do
I
it
agree.
ahead of time. Why set up ourselves for failure?
Yeah.
So I think it's fairly easy to verify things. And I don't know if there is a form. I think Paul talked about this, that they fill out a form about their qualifications, and it's kind of a checklist depending upon which office it is.
No, they
And
don't.
I
They
think,
don't.
wait a minute, we should have, I'm saying, I agree we should have. That it'd be very simple just to have set up a checklist And it not give them kind of a free flowing thing. It's not necessary. Just check off things and give basic facts. It doesn't have to be a term paper or anything like that. And if it raises any eyebrows, then the elections department does a little bit of investigation.
Go ahead,
But,
Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's one reason why I was completely against it at the beginning, but since then I've gone along with very easily verifiable items again, and I use the terminology of somebody walking into the front counter. I'm want to apply. I want to be a candidate for assessor, and here's my $1,000 charge. It is going to be very difficult to verify certain things if we make the qualifications more complicated than what Dick has put up already. Having said all that, I think it should be done at a place where the person meets the government official that is taking the application for candidacy. Now, sometimes the prosecuting attorney will have to check the legality of things, not the qualification per se, but the legality. Is the person a US citizen? Is the person registered to vote? Is the person of a certain age? Those are very easy to do. But the other things that are not easy to do is if we require somebody to have a certificate of completion, do they have that handy when they come in to file for election? The prosecuting attorney has to have passed the bar exam. Does the prosecuting attorney, when they come in to file, do they have that handy in their hand that this is my bar exam passage and so on? So those things have to come in to the counter by the candidate applying. So if we don't have those kind of things, it's going to be very difficult to check. If I worked at an assessor's office 40 years ago, how do you check that? I mean, that's really difficult to do. I would say make it as simple as possible, and somebody at the counter can check with ease.
I think Richard's hand's up next. Richard?
Richard's up, yeah.
Well, what I was going to suggest, in the interest of time, though Paul has his hand up too, so we should hear from him afterwards.
Bob also does.
I'm perfectly willing to talk to Mylene, talk to Camelin in the elections office, find out exactly what is done currently, and then come back with a proposal. And what I have in mind is probably alternative proposals. One that would specify simply that the candidate certifies that he or she meets those minimum qualifications and provides some sort of documentation, like a resume or selected parts of a resume that shows their education, their relevant experience, and they're certifying under oath that that's true. The other provision, the alternative would be to do that and also require that one of those offices does at least some random checking of that stuff. Those are the two ways I see this going.
Do you think that the HR has any place
Oh.
in this?
No.
Well, it could be HR
I
that
don't
does the checking.
know.
I don't think HR should be involved.
We have heads saying no on that one, but Bob is next. Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to agree with David. I think it was David that said this, that the prosecuting attorney waiting till after the election is ridiculous. If the person certifies something and hands it to somebody and takes one step back, then he has broken the law. He or she has broken the law if they've lied about it, right? You don't have to, the law is no more broken after the election than it was before the election. The law that we're setting up is not that anybody who's elected to that office have to have these qualifications. They have to have the qualifications to run for the office, right?
That's right.
And we've got to make sure that that's clear. So that means that Randy's office needs to get involved ahead of time. And my next question is, do we get to tell Randy what to do at all? I mean, he is a state, it's a state office, but the county pays the bill, right? I mean,
Half of the bill.
okay. So what is that? Can we put something in there that says and the county attorney has a responsibility to, not to check, I'm talking about when it gets brought to his attention by any party that this person has lied, then that they would have the responsibility to investigate and prosecute if necessary.
Well, as he says in his email to us, or me, that lack of qualifications that involve years of experience are not as easy to prove or disprove. So he is saying that it's hard to enforce this. But I think we're approaching it from a different place. So maybe we're onto something better here. Paul, go ahead. Or was it David next?
No, Paul.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to forget you again.
Thank you. No, I'm kind of backing off of my own suggestion with me bringing in the legal beagles to kind of look this over before it's approved. And I'm kind of moving towards David's suggestion. And you're right, when they sign that document, they are liable. And I think that probably just if you had just a kind of a checkoff thing that Dave was talking about, where they said, yeah, I'm a certified or accredited appraiser, and each of those are checkoff points, and he goes down and signs it, that to me is good enough. And if somebody afterwards wants to challenge him for liability, well, that's his problem or her problem. So I would go with Dave's suggestion.
I think it was Tony's, wasn't it? It was Tony's. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I take the wrong person?
That's okay. Go ahead, David.
One thing I think we have to think about is, well, first of all, a suggestion and a comment. Perhaps we don't have to get into the weeds on this. Instead, say that there has to be a vetting process of the application, make sure they meet the qualifications, and the county council shall develop a system to implement that. And we don't necessarily get into the details of how it's going to be done. And then the county council will basically give the ball to them, and then they can consult with Mylene and Randy and come up with a system. Just an idea. The other thing is, what could happen is that whoever does the vetting and make sure that somebody is qualified. And by the way, they don't necessarily appear in person at the counter, I don't think, when they file their application. I think they can do it online. I don't think they necessarily go in there. But what happens if whoever's doing the vetting, whoever we decide or the council decide does the vetting, what if they disqualify somebody and that person ends up disputing that and suing? You could potentially have a suit against the county. So maybe I'm going to go against maybe part of what I said earlier. Maybe at some point in time, Randy has to weigh in on a disqualification just to protect the county. He's responsible for protecting us against lawsuits and fines and financial repercussions.
And
So I
not
think there
creating
might,
one.
and I think you could have a problem with somebody getting disqualified who takes exception and challenges it. There's got to be a process for that. So we'll get it's a can of worms,
Okay, hold
maybe
on.
bigger than we realize.
Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I think because of the time issue, I think it looks to me like what we've agreed to is that there are qualifications needed. So we've already agreed to that. The question now is that how do we make sure that those qualifications are properly vetted before the person files for candidacy? Maybe part of the statement that we present forward is that we ask, and I think I'm using some of the words by everybody here, so I'm not sure who to credit. I'm going to credit everybody else, that we should put some kind of language that says the county elections department / the attorney department will come up with the method of verifying these qualifications, instead of us having to go through and think of different ways of doing it, because there are some legal issues, there are some verification issues. There's a person, if they sign the piece of paper that they swear to their qualifications are correct, all these things are in place. So I think we should just say we require elected officials to have qualifications as presented earlier by Dick, and we all agreed to, and have the county, whichever department in the county, maybe the elections department, come up with a method of verifying these qualifications.
Would you like to make a motion?
No, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I want to ask Richard something. Richard?
Yeah, what I was going to propose based on this discussion is that we add a sentence, which I'm willing to draft, to what we've approved as the qualifications that says a candidate must certify under oath that he or she meets the minimum qualifications for the office for which he or she is filed. And then at least we do that at a minimum. And in fact, I will check with Randy to see if we can add to that state language that all the things you have to certify. And if not, we just do it as a separate San Juan County certification that has to happen. So then we're putting the candidate under oath. And then if what we want to do is leave it up to the county, the prosecutor, the council, human resources to decide what, if any, verification is necessary, I'm fine with that. But let's at least make it abundantly clear. You have to certify under oath that you meet those qualifications.
Well, they do, but that they do. It's called the Declaration of Candidacy, and that is the certification.
To me, that language is a little vague, and what I'm arguing is let's make it specific.
So, Richard, you had said you could contact either Randy or maybe Mylene and run this by them to see if there's any issue. Are you still willing to do that?
Yes, but I don't think there's any issue with it. My only question is whether we can add it to the state language of qualifications, or if we just do it as a county requirement. That's all. But regardless, we say, if you're a candidate, you got to certify you meet the qualifications.
So our intention here is to just add language to the new qualifications that we are going to put, hopefully get passed into the charter. And then this paragraph or a sentence or two will follow it as a declaration that we want proof of this, or we want verification. We want the county to verify this.
It'll be part of the proposal.
Okay, I got it. Yes, Bob, go ahead.
These are all good ideas, I think, although I don't think we ought to check back with Randy about any of this, because he's already come out and said what he
Yeah,
believes.
I agree.
I believe that I think it was David that had the right idea about who ought to put it into effect, and that would be the council. The council should draft an ordinance regarding it. And the last thing I wanted to say was, although I haven't looked at it, I think it's very probable that in state law there is a provision that makes falsification of this kind of job application working for the government at any level is probably a misdemeanor. In other words, a crime. And because we don't create crimes here, but if it is a crime, then Randy's office can pursue it. So if you'd like me to, if it would be helpful, I don't know whether I even need to do this. I can go look at the RCW and find out what section says that you can't lie on these kinds of applications.
You could do that and share it with Dick if he's going to write this up. That would be good. Go
Sure.
ahead, Dave.
Well, more important in this context than a crime is a disqualification. The person can't qualify. And then whether or not he's prosecuted, is prosecuted is another consideration. And probably both should happen, but definitely disqualification. Would it make sense to invite Mylene, since I think, I may be wrong, that the elections department should be the one to enforce this, and she probably knows what other counties have done with it in regard to this vetting process. It might be worthwhile to ask Mylene for her opinion.
I would
Have a
not
little-
be inclined to invite her for this. I would be inclined to ask Richard to have a separate conversation offline, just so
Either
that
way.
he could bring it to us.
Either way.
Which I said I would do.
Okay, he's already said he will do it, so I would rather do it. Now, remember, we were going to spend the bulk of this time talking about our elected votes, so that we can start preparing a narrative for that and a finding for all of that. And well, anyway, are we done with this part right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so right now we're on a holding pattern. Richard's going to come back. Bob's going to share what RCWs you come up with, and we're just going to take this to next week to be continued. But we were going to spend today talking about our votes to keep all of the electeds in place. And I think there's some very important things we need to get going on that and discuss. And it looks like we're almost out of time to do it today. I certainly have had a lot of thoughts about reconsidering the sheriff vote. I have had a lot of feedback. There's a lot to say. So since we didn't get to it today, I'm going to have to put it on next week again and just really start there and start developing our arguments in support of doing the five elected offices being kept as they are. You all agree?
Well, if we don't, do we have any public that we need to ask to speak if they want to?
I'm going to get to that after this conversation.
Okay, what I was going to say, if there's no public, we've still got 10 minutes left to at least initiate that conversation.
Okay, let me ask. Do we have any public who wishes to make a comment in today's meeting?
There's no public.
anyone- Any public comment?
There's nobody waiting or in.
Nobody waiting.
Oh.
All right, so we fulfilled our requirement there. We have to be able to discuss this openly with the full commission. The 5 offices, I think it's 5, that we have agreed to keep as they are. And we all talked about it last week, and we agreed that we would delve into this and start listing our findings for keeping that. So
I would,
you can, hold on, let me make a note here. Comment. Has anyone else heard from other members of the commission or, okay, Paul, you go ahead.
well, I can't respond to your question right now, Maureen, but when it
Well,
comes,
your hand is up.
well, because I had a different point of view. You're talking about making an argument to make it findings for why we're keeping it as it is. And it seems to me it should be flipped the other way around. We should be giving our findings of why, if we decided not to have elected and go to appointed, that's why we give our
Okay,
responsibility. We don't think it should stay elected.
right. Okay, no, I agree. I think that's fine. We can do it that way. But let's have that conversation. We have, go for it. Start throwing out your ideas. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
So what is your concern, Maureen, about the sheriff's office? Is that something that you're rethinking what our decision was, or I'm just not
I
sure.
have been rethinking it based on, I've been approached by a number of citizens and some commission people who feel that that is the one seat that they feel should have been changed. And I'll tell you, when we voted, that was the one office that I had misgivings about. I wasn't 100% sure about. I felt that our sheriff gave a great presentation, and I thought he provided us with some great information. But I'm also listening to the citizens talk to me, and there's a different belief out there, and people feel that this is a good opportunity to take a look at that.
Well, I have to say, I disrespectfully disagree with this concept of having an appointed sheriff. And yes, people might have different ideas. I get that, and we've heard it. We've heard about different things that have come up during the town hall and other things. I get that, but we are an 18-member commission. Our task is to improve the charter to the benefit of all the inhabitants of San Juan County. And I think I don't see a problem currently in the sheriff's office or in the other elected's office that has to be changed to improve the livelihood of our inhabitants and so on. So I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just saying that I don't see an issue that we need to uproot this charter itself to modify it because there's a feedback from some members of the county that don't like that decision. So,
But I think that what's interesting about the feedback that I've been hearing and receiving personally, and I would just capsulize it to say meaningful oversight is not there. And that is what I keep having people come to me about. And I just think it's worth us talking about it.
okay.
And whatever. So go ahead, Bob.
I will just say that, as you all know, I was basically in favor of everybody being appointed, in particularly the sheriff. I did listen to what everybody said, and I do feel like, you know, you all have the experience, and I don't, of living in the county for many, many years and being a county employee. And I certainly took that into effect, but into account. But I have a feeling that the main commission is going to at least consider going the other way. I've not been involved in that, any talk regarding that. I mean, I think I've heard Kevin say something about it, but I'm not encouraging it or have had any talk about it whatsoever. But you know, if they started talking about that, I might, you know, renew some of my thoughts about it. Okay, I'm pretty sure I would about the sheriff, but I also believe that this committee, having made its decision the way that it did, should be given great deference. I think I may have said this before. And I think, Madam Chair, you should argue that the committee should be given great deference because these wise heads got together and made these decisions. And, you know, whether I agreed with them or not, made these decisions and should be given great deference. And once you have said that, we should all be free to say what we want about the matter if it does come up. I don't know whether it will or it won't. But yeah, the sheriff, for all the reasons that I noted, the sheriff in particular is one that I think should be appointed, but I understand the argument the other way.
Yeah, I'll go. Go ahead, Richard, you're next.
In response to Bob, I think the deference we're being given is what Kevin has already said, is that the first issues to be discussed among the full commission will be those that got a majority vote in their committee. So this is one that will come up because it got a majority vote.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, I think it is incumbent on us. We need to make a finding, no matter how brief. We do need to make a finding as to, because it was an issue that was put forward, as to why we're keeping all of the offices the way they are. And we also need to make a finding as to why we chose not to consolidate any of those courthouse offices. That's what we need, in my mind, to put forward to the full commission. And that's
Thank
it.
you. That's true. Go ahead, David.
I agree with Dick. I think we made a decision. We should stick with it until something convinces us otherwise, but not start with the assumption, hey, maybe we made a mistake. So I think Dick said this, and I would agree. Maybe he didn't, but I'll put it out there. Let's start with the findings on each one of them and go through there. And if we find that our findings are weak or challengeable or whatever, then maybe we have a discussion. But if we had strong findings before, or our discussion was definitive before, let's not second guess ourselves until we get into the actual enumeration of the findings.
Mhm.
And if they're strong and we agree they're strong, then we move on. And I wouldn't be concerned about other people at the CRC who might question us. That's not something we should take into consideration. We're grown-ups. We were given this task to evaluate and decide on or recommend. And let's just move forward with it. And
No, I think
let
we are
the
doing that.
chips fly where they may.
I think we are doing that, and we've got to put the work into just developing the findings on these areas. And I'm not sharing my information with the full commission. I'm just sharing it with you. And I think this is where I want to take
Well, it's public. It's
whatever
public
I
record.
think, and also let you know what I'm getting as far as feedback. So we didn't really get to our making our list, but I think we need to think about it between now and next week and really come in with some ideas. And it'll go quickly if we feel that strongly. I already know what I want to say about the other offices. Go ahead, Tony.
I think a week or two ago, Madam Chair, thank you for letting me speak. A week or two ago, you said something that kind of been hanging for me. One was that either the chair or others in the commission did not agree with us moving forward with not changing the current elected officials to something different. And I think you mentioned that the chair said that he has the votes to bring it to the full commission. And I remember at the time, I stated that I was really concerned about that process. How does that work? I mean, what does it mean when the chair of the commission says that they have enough votes to bring it forward, essentially saying regardless of what we decided? So I don't like that process. And I asked Kevin during one of the meetings, and I asked him, what is the process? Is it a handful of people that bring it up, and I don't think I got a really good answer for that. Now, what Dick Kraut said a little bit earlier this evening was that, or this morning, I should say, that the idea is that these subcommittees will bring forward a couple of items, and those should be at the top of the list. I agree with that, and I think that's what I understood, Dick. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's what Kevin said he would do, is those get first discussion.
Yep. So if we are moving forward and saying that we should have these elected officials stay as they are, that would seem to me that is not a top item on our list. It's not even an item on our list because we're not changing anything. So I would suggest to what Bob said, that you as the chair of this committee to argue vehemently that our input should be given a certain weight.
Of course, and it will. But I just want to correct you on that. Kevin didn't say he had the votes. He said he might have the votes. He was throwing out the idea that it's possible that that will come up, and that the full commission might view this differently. And that's what he reiterated with your question the other night. He said the final decision will be made by the full commission.
I think so. I know Kevin for a long time. He probably thought about it overnight, maybe, and came back with a different. But I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna.
He didn't say anything with huge definition. He just, he just let me know that he might.
Got it.
So, and that's why I passed it on to all of you, because I think that was important. Go ahead, Bob.
I like Kevin, and I think he makes a good chairperson, but I'll say this. He better not be out there saying he has the votes for anything, because I believe that would require one of those string meetings to find out. You call number one, you call number two, you call number three, unless you do it in a meeting. We all know he didn't do that because we were in the meetings. So no, you cannot go out and muster up the votes outside the meeting. It breaks the rules.
Yeah,
That's the point I was making a couple of weeks ago in this group here.
Yes, and you did, and you made it well. Go ahead, Dick.
I just want to make the point. I still think, because it was an issue that was put forward, that the whole group knows was on the master list, is on our list. Someone needs to write a finding about why we're leaving the offices all elected, and someone needs to write a finding about why we chose not to consolidate. And I have a homework assignment for next time. Bob has a homework assignment for next time. So I'm looking at David and Tony. And Tony, you articulated, basically it was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think you could easily write a very brief finding for why we decided the offices should stay elected. And then the question is, David or Maureen, would you write one for why we chose not to consolidate? I would volunteer to do it, but I believe I abstained on that because I had feelings in the other direction.
Okay. I'm happy to do part of that. I think I should say that David, Tony, and Paul, and myself, we should come prepared with a statement in that direction for next week, and we can look at that. All of us should do this. I already have it in my head. I can easily put it in writing, and that's important, but everybody has to participate. So I'm giving you all, I know what Dick is doing, and I know what Bob is doing. I'm asking the four of us remaining to write down a statement regarding to consolidate or not to consolidate, and why we chose to leave the electeds as elected. We're all going to do that, the four of us, okay? Bring it
And
in.
I forgot Paul, because I only get 4 people at a time on my screen. So Paul, you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Maureen, will that be one finding that will cover all of the decisions?
I think it should, because I basically, we did sort of group them. Does anybody think there should be one per?
I do. Can I?
Treasurer. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it should be one by one because the rationale could be different. And we have to demonstrate that we considered each one on its own merits. So I don't think it should be a blanket one that applies. There are going to be some common elements since it's not, such as it's not broken. But
The
I think it should
consolidation.
be.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the consolidation. I'm talking about elected versus appointed. I think
Okay.
I assign to me 2 separate ones or whatever, and I will work on those individually because I think they have to be specific to the position that we're talking about. The other thing I wanted to comment about this Kevin saying he has the votes. I got the impression that somebody, maybe Bob, thinks that he has the votes to decide one way or the other on the issue. But I don't think that's what he meant. Maybe I misunderstood Bob. I think what he meant is the votes to bring it up for consideration by the full CRC. Not to vote it up or down, but to talk about it. And because he's going to have to make some decision, and I don't know how he's going to do it, on what is going to go before the full CRC. And I think this particular issue undoubtedly will go there, but that doesn't mean he has the votes to approve it or
I don't want
disapprove it.
everybody to continue to say Kevin said he had the votes. That's just not an accurate description. Kevin
Yeah.
said there may be enough votes. That's all. It was
Well,
a
it's the same issue. It's the same issue.
supposition, but it sounds differently when you say it that way. Go ahead, Tony.
I think that since you gave us the assignment for 4 of us that are not already busy with other items, such as Bob and Dick, I think we should just kind of, it's already past the hour. And
I know.
I think if David offered to write separate items for separate things, that's good. It's always good to share things. And if you or Paul have other things that we want to add to those 2 items, then we can do that and just revisit this next week, as you suggested earlier. I think we've talked about all of that, so I think we're pretty well covered.
I'm not going to do all 4 of them. I'm suggesting you divide it up one by one.
Got it.
Oh, God, it's getting more complicated here. Go
That's
ahead,
not
Dick.
complicated. That's simple.
ahead, Dick.
Assign one to me. Just tell me
Excuse me.
which one you want.
I'll tell you in a minute. Go ahead, Dick.
Well, I just want to say, I think, let's not make a big deal of this. These
Yeah,
can
really.
be brief and to the point. These are not long treatises.
Yeah, one sentence is all we need on these 4 to 5.
Well, maybe a little more than that.
All right. I think we
I
got the
will-
assignment.
I'm going to email you with your assignment, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay.
Okay,
All right. So
sounds good.
thank you. Let's say, do we have any new business beyond what we now know? We all know what we're going to do. You 3, I'm going to email you and tell you what I expect. Okay.
Move adjournment.
All right. We're ready for adjourn. Ready? Thank you.
Bye,
You'll be hearing
everybody.
from me. All right.
I love this committee. Bye.
End the
The
recording.
best.
The best committee there is.
End the recording.
Well.